Where do we start here? Welcome to Season 1, Episode 16 of Tristan Take Video. I am sitting here with my lovely Legor XCR stainless steel race bike. Today I thought I'd take you through some of the things I like about this bike and some of the reasons I chose the things that are on the bike. If you watched last episode, episode 15, you'll see that I raced the bike. That was actually the first race for the bike. Without further ado, let's crack on with the review of my Legor XCR stainless steel road bike. Alright, so where to start? Well, the obvious place is with the frame. So this frame is a Columbus XCR stainless steel road frame. It's been hand welded in Barcelona by Mattia Paganotti of Legor Cicli. Legor Cicli. Mattia is an Italian builder, but he lives in Barcelona these days. He's been welding frames for about the last 10 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. I've ridden with him a bunch of times and had a few glasses of wine with him, and he's such a good dude, and he makes a really, really good frame as well. Mattia comes from a background in mountain bike riding and cross-country racing, cyclocross racing, so he's definitely testing his bikes pretty hard. So my foray into steel was actually with Mattia and Legor. I got a Legor 3 years ago and I've been riding and racing on that for the last 3 years. I raced at the Hort route in the Alps, all over Catalonia, other parts of Spain, and the bikes performed amazingly. What's interesting with steel, and part of my passion for steel, is the fact that it defies what a lot of people think a race bike can be. They think a race bike has to be ultra lightweight and has to be made of carbon. But what I've learned over time, riding and racing my previous Legor, the blue one, is that that's not true at all. The bike was not very heavy. The previous one was 7.4 kilos. This one's a touch heavier at 7.6, which if you ask a lot of world tour guys how much their bike weighs, a lot of guys' bikes weigh more than this. Yes, steel is a touch heavier in the frame, but you can still build the bikes exceptionally light, and that's where I'm at with this. The geometry of the frame was custom designed for me. I run quite a short saddle height at 685 millimeters, and then I run quite a long top tube at 535 millimeters. So the top tube to the seat height ratio is quite different to normal, which is why custom is perfect for me. I think custom is also perfect for lots of other people because of the fact that a lot of people don't fit into the regular measurements of a bike. But for me, I got a bike with a perfect length top tube, the right amount of seat post out of the frame for comfort, and then I asked for a few other smaller details to make the bike a touch more racy. When I spoke to Mattia originally about the bike, I said I need a bike that descends really well because I'm not the most confident descender. So I asked for a bike that was going to really help enhance my descending, and that's what Mattia's done with this one. So one of the questions I've had quite a few times is what's the difference between this bike and my previous bike, the blue one? The difference between the blue bike and this one is down to a couple of things. The blue bike was made out of regular steel. This is stainless steel, so it's a different material. Stainless steel has a different ride quality. It can be slightly stiffer. The thickness of the tubes in this frame are a little bit thicker to give it a bit more stiffness and a bit more strength in sprinting and when under power, and whereas the blue bike had a touch more flex to it. That definitely affects the ride quality. I found the blue bike a little bit more comfortable if I'm honest, but I find this bike much stiffer when I'm pushing a decent amount of power. Mattia also changed the geometry very slightly with this frame, with a slightly lower bottom bracket, slightly longer chainstays, and a slightly different head angle. That just gives the bike a slightly different feel when climbing and when descending. I definitely noticed the descending, the bike tips in a lot harder, and then I noticed in the climbing the bike is a lot stiffer. Whether or not that stiffness is a good thing, I don't know. One of the things I really liked about the previous bike was how it had a certain amount of life and comfort to it. And even though it wasn't the stiffest bike I've ever ridden, it actually felt really, really lovely. With this bike, it's a much stiffer race bike. So the bike definitely doesn't feel as comfortable, but it definitely feels more aggressive. It descends better, it sprints better, and it handles a lot of power much, much better as well. Let's talk about the paint for a moment. The paint, as you can see, is quite simple. So I went with a glossy black with a very slight goldy bronze sparkle in it, which is really hard to see in this kind of light, but when I'm riding outside and it's in direct sunshine, you can definitely see a bit of a sparkle to the frame. So I went with stainless steel silver logos on the black and a stainless steel chainstay as well, so that when you get chain slap, it's not cracking through the paint at all. One of the things that inspired me to go all black was actually seeing a couple of other all black bikes around and just thinking that is a beautiful look. It's really, really timeless, it's really classy, and for me, it's exactly what I wanted. Now, moving on to the parts, let's have a look at the wheels first. I'm running ENVE Composites SES 3.4 rim brake wheels. So one of the reasons I really like the ENVE 3.4s over the 4.5s or the 2.2s is that the ENVE 3.4s are the perfect middle ground of slightly aero without being too heavy. I have run the 2.2s in the past, and I've also run the 4.5s. The 4.5s are noticeably more aero and the 2.2s are noticeably lighter, but for general riding, I would say the 3.4s are the perfect balance. A lot of people have asked me, why haven't you gone disc brakes? For me, it's down to a couple of things. One, I don't really need disc brakes. I run in the dry a lot, and I don't find I've ever had any issues with rim brakes. We've been running rim brakes for years and years and years. There's a beauty to the simplicity of them. They don't require a huge amount of maintenance. It's very easy to change brake pads, and for me, I just enjoy the feel of them. I don't feel currently like I'm being let down by not running disc brakes. Having said this, I'm definitely open to disc brakes. I will potentially have a disc brake bike in future, but for the moment, for this bike, I wanted to stick with the tradition of rim brakes. So the rims have been built onto Chris King hubs. The Chris King hubs are super smooth. I found over the past couple of years they've actually gotten smoother with time and they feel super fast. As long as you maintain them, you'll have no issues with a set of Chris King hubs across multiple rims. As for tyres, I'm running the ENVE SES Road tubeless tyre. So ENVE just brought out the Road tubeless tyres about 6 months ago. I've been running Continentals previously and been really happy with the Contis, but I thought, you know what, given I've got ENVE everything, I'm going to try the ENVE tyres. I'm running the 27mm tyres with tan walls, as you can see. They're set up tubeless. So far they roll really, really nicely. I wouldn't say these tyres are as quick as the Continental GP5000s. They don't quite have the same rolling speed. However, I would say they have more grip. So it's a bit of a trade-off, whether you want descending confidence or you want rolling speed. It's up to you, but I've been really happy with the ENVE tyres so far. Okay, so moving on to the Groupset. Now, if you know anything about the bike industry right now, you'll know that there is an extreme shortage of Shimano, SRAM, Campagnolo parts all over the world. Coronavirus has really stopped the flow of parts out of China and out of Asia, so it's been really difficult to get parts. So to explain what's going on with this bike, I'm actually running a bit of a mix of Ultegra and dura-ace. It's not ideal, it's not exactly what I wanted when I first had the frame built, but that's where I'm at. I'm running dura-ace shifters, I'm running Ultegra derailleurs, I'm running a dura-ace crankset, and I've got on some dura-ace brake calipers. So the bike is mainly dura-ace, but it's got the Ultegra derailleurs. One thing I can say about the Ultegra derailleurs is that they are much, much more affordable than dura-ace, and given it's a race bike, if I crash on it, I'm not so worried about replacing an Ultegra derailleur versus a dura-ace derailleur. Yes, Ultegra is definitely heavier, and I would have loved to have dura-ace, but given it was firstly unavailable and secondly super expensive, I decided, you know what, let's get the bike built up, let me put some Ultegra derailleurs on, and the reality is Ultegra rides exactly the same as dura-ace. And on the rear derailleur, as you can see, I've got CeramicSpeed oversized pulley wheels. CeramicSpeed were nice enough to hook me up with a set of oversized pulley wheels and a bottom bracket specifically for this bike. I asked for silver pulley wheels to match the logos on the frame, and they delivered me a set of silver pulley wheels to match the frame, and I think it just tops off the look of the bike really, really nicely. So one of the questions I got through Instagram the other day was, is CeramicSpeed worth the money and do you think it makes a difference? And I want to say absolutely for sure. Originally, I was a little bit skeptical with CeramicSpeed bearings, but then on my previous bike, I ran CeramicSpeed and I found the difference to be amazing. After riding CeramicSpeed for quite a long time, I would definitely say with confidence that on a dollars to benefit ratio, CeramicSpeed makes a bigger difference than a deep set of wheels. A set of CeramicSpeed jockey wheels and a bottom bracket is going to set you back about 650 to 700 euros, but what you get for that is incredible, and how many watts you save is really noticeable. A deep set of wheels is going to cost you a couple of grand, and you'll definitely save some watts there and you'll definitely feel a difference. But if you've only got a few hundred euros to spend upgrading your bike, that's something that's going to make your drivetrain silky, silky smooth, and you'll really notice the difference. So one of the things I love about running Di2 is having a sprint shifter. I run a sprint shifter on the drops. The sprint shifter helps when you're A, sprinting, and B, I also find that descending and cornering, it's quite good. I can come into a corner, I can keep my fingers on the brake, I can shift shift down gears if I need to, and then as I'm coming out of the corner and I'm starting to put power down and the speed's starting to ramp up, I can shift up gears using the sprint shifter, and I never need to take my fingers off the brakes, which is a big benefit during races. So for the Di2, I am running the junction box in the bar end on the right hand side. As you can see, I'm actually running the left hand side uncut, so I've got asymmetrical bars. That might crack some people, it doesn't bother me too much. I like having the junction box in the right hand side, and that's all that matters to me. One of the things that I should mention about the dura-ace crankset is that I'm running 165mm cranks. So about 5 years ago when I was living in Sydney, I had a bike fit, and the bike fitter told me that because of my leg length and my saddle height, I should consider going from 170mm cranks down to 165mm. So I bought a set of 165mm cranks instead, and after one ride I was totally sold. So I've been running 165mm on my road bike for the past 5 years, and I can tell you it's the single biggest upgrade I've ever made to my riding experience. I went from having real trouble on climbs with my hips and with my knees, from overextending, to being super smooth. I think if you're short and you have a short saddle height, I would highly recommend asking your bike fitter about running shorter cranks. It might be a difference that really makes a huge change for you. I'm running a 52-36 chainring. Now, 52 doesn't seem very racy. Most people are running a 53 on their race bike. You know why I'm running a 52? After speaking with Simon Gerrans when he won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he told me he was running a 52-tooth chainring. You know why he was running a 52-tooth chainring instead of a 53? Because Liège, when he won, finished after an uphill drag into a sprint. So it wasn't a high-speed sprint. So what Simon needed to do in that situation was get his legs turning. If he'd been on a bigger geared bike, it would have taken him longer to get his legs up to speed, and he would have been at a disadvantage. If Simon Gerrans was running a 52-tooth chainring, I can run a 52-tooth chainring. Most of the time, the races that I'm doing, they come down to either a small group or some tactics. So you're never sprinting from maximum speed anyway. And then the reason I'm running a 36 is it just means I can keep my legs spinning on climbs. I never have any issues with a 36. I've raced on a 36 tooth chainring for a long time. For a lot of the climbs that I'm doing around Girona, a 36 tooth is actually much more comfortable to run. And then it just means that you can always keep your cadence up, which is how you keep your power up on the climbs. So moving on to the build kit. I'm running an ENVE Composites Aero handlebar, Aero stem, and C-post. One of the questions I was asked the other day through Instagram is why I'm running an aero setup on a non-aero frame. One of the things I can tell you is that on any bike, aerodynamics is going to help, whether it be in the frame or whether it be in the handlebars or whether it be in the wheels. One of the things that I can say about the aero bars that I really like is the flare. So these bars are categorized as 40 centimeters, but they're 37 centimeters at the top and they're 42 at the bottom of the drops. So what happens is when you're actually sprinting and your hands are in the drops, they've got a nice bit of width to them, you've got clearance for your wrists, and then when you're in the hoods, you can get super aero. So I can bring my shoulders right in, I can keep my hands nice and close, and that gives me quite a small frontal area. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of being aero. I'm running a fabric scoop saddle with carbon rails. This is the relatively flat saddle. It's super comfortable. I've been running it the last few years. I took it off the blue bike and I put it on this bike because I don't need to get a new one. I'm used to the saddle, I've done long days on it, and I'm very happy with the way it rides. I'm running the ENVE bar tape. This bar tape is 3mm thick and it's super nice and grippy. It's got a really nice feel to it. I'm running it on my gravel bike and I'm now running it on the road bike. I found that training without gloves and riding without gloves on this bar tape is super comfortable. And one of the best things for me is keeping it all in the ENVE family. I have the K-Edge ENVE out front mount for my Wahoo. This is a really nice little integrated out front mount. It's super solid, it's made of metal. It's a touch heavy, which I don't love, but I'm also running a steel bike, so I can't complain. The Wahoo grips onto it really well, and I found it's a super nice integrated design. And finally onto the bottle cages. I'm running Arundel or Arundel mandible carbon bottle cages. I've run them on my previous road bike and I'm running on them on the gravel bike as well, and now I've got them on this bike. They're super grippy, they last a long time, they look really clean and minimal, they're very lightweight. Most importantly, you'll never drop a bottle. So highly recommended, the Arundel mandible carbon bottle cage. moving on to a couple of the questions that I've been asked through Instagram, I want to answer a couple of the questions I got. So I'm going to start with the basic one of how does the weight affect the handling with carbon versus steel? One thing I can tell you is a slightly heavier bike sits on the road a bit better, so when you're descending, you've actually got more confidence. You can get the lightest bike in the world, and it might feel great when you're going up climbs, but as soon as you're descending, I would say that a steel bike makes you feel a bit more confident. At least that's what I've found. Another question that I've been asked by Mark is, do I feel like I'm at a disadvantage racing a steel bike over a carbon bike? Simple answer, no. I mean, I chose a steel bike, I chose to race on the thing. I've ridden it for a few years now and I've won races on it. Steel is not slowing me down at all. I can definitely tell you, for single hill climbs, I would say, yes, sure, steel is a little bit heavier, that's a disadvantage, but I would say for general all-round riding, steel is just as competitive as carbon. One of the things that I think a lot of people get hung up on in the world of race bikes is weight. Weight is obviously a big factor, but there's more to racing than weight. There's bike handling, there's confidence, there's descending skill, and the reality is I'm not racing at a level where that 100 or 200 grams makes such a big difference to the end result. Yes, I have to lug a slightly heavier bike up a climb, but as long as the climb is not above 8%, I'm actually at no disadvantage. There's been plenty of studies done into aerodynamics versus weight, and a more aero bike, even if it's heavier, is going to be faster up a climb, up to 7%, than a bike that's ultra light. So for me, I'm already a good climber. I don't need help on the climbs, and if anything, I want that confidence descending. I want the bike to be fitted exactly for me and the geometry designed to suit my riding style, and those are the advantages that I'm looking for in steel. If you're buying a bike based on its weight, or you're buying a bike based on the fact that you've been told it's the stiffest one out there, that's awesome. Those bikes are really, really good, but I can tell you now there's more to a bike than just its weight. So that's my very strong opinion on steel. Feel free to shoot me down in the comments if you like, but I've had no problems, and given I'm still performing pretty competitively, I would say that steel is no disadvantage to me. Another question that I was asked is, do I feel the difference with a new steel bike over the old steel frame? The new steel bike definitely feels newer. It feels snappier and it feels whippier. I did 70,000 Ks on the other frame, which if you do that on any frame, you're definitely going to start to feel a difference. So with the new bike, there is a different ride quality to it. I wouldn't say that's about a newer frame versus an older frame. I would say that's down to the way the bike has been built. This is a more racy bike. It's designed to be stiffer. So I think that's what I'm feeling instead of just the age of the bike. One of the other questions I had was, what am I doing with the other frame? When you have a bike built specifically for you, the last thing you want to go and do is sell that old frame. So I currently have the old frame sitting in my spare room. It's being cleaned, it looks beautiful, it's a piece of art. And while I ride this, I'm going to keep looking at the other frame and just enjoying the fact that it was made for me. And finally, one of the last questions I had, although it was less of a question, more of a comment, is thanks for keeping the rim brake alive. That's no problem. Someone's got to do it. I really like rim brakes, very happy to stick with them for the moment. And unless anyone's going to provide me with a brand new, specialized SL7 with disc brakes, I think I'll just stick with my rim brake. Have it. That is my Legor XCR stainless steel race bike. It's an amazing looking bike. It was handmade for me. It rides incredibly. I'm going to race the absolute shit out of it this year, and I'm really, really happy with it. So thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions, definitely put them in the comments down below and I'll get back to all of those. And if you'd like to see more on this bike, you can jump on my Instagram. If you'd like to see more on Legor, I'll put a link to a video that I made with the service course back in March of last year, right before coronavirus, about Mattia. I'm going to put the link to that right up here. And if you'd like to see more of Mattia's bikes, you can jump on his Instagram, which I'll pop a link to just down here as well. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope I did the bike justice, and I hope that you got inspired to think more about steel as a material to ride. I'll see you all in the next episode soon. All right, see you.